Hello YouTube. Now, you all know him, and you all love to hate him. Everybody's favourite douchebag Decepticon Lieutenant, Starscream. I really don't know where to begin with this review. How do you recount the character that has been prominent in every single Transformers continuity there has ever been, and has played a principal part in it? In fact, Starscream is a lot of people's favourite Transformer ever, and it's not difficult to see why. He's a twat. He's a vile character. If the Decepticons are populated by psychopaths, neurotics, Transformers with incredible social and mental problems, and Starscream utterly epitomises every single flaw to beset the Transformer race. He is repulsive, and is all the more attractive for it. Now, I think you all know that Starscream, in the Generation 1 continuities, was one of Megatron's lieutenants. In fact, he was, apart from arguably Soundwave and Shockwave, one of the very highest ranking Decepticons. He was one of Megatron's inner circle. And he's the Decepticon Aerospace Commander. So essentially, if you have an airborne Decepticon, this guy is their boss. He leads all of the airborne Decepticons, and he's usually seen accompanied by the likes of Thundercracker, Skywarp, and occasionally the Coneheads, Dirge, Thrust, and Ramjet. Now, the thing that interests me about Starscream more than anything, particularly in Generation 1 continuity such as the original cartoon and the Dreamwave comics, is that Starscream gets away with a lot. A hell of a lot. You get the impression that if any of the other Decepticons tried even half of what Starscream does, they would have been blown to atoms. And yet Megatron seems to tolerate him to a certain degree, and that's never fully explained, not in the Generation 1 cartoon anyway. He finally does snap, of course, in the movie after Starscream has kicked him out into space when he's critically wounded, and when he comes back as Galvatron, he shoots him and he kills him quite brilliantly. There's not much left of Starscream by the end. But up till that point, he seems quite tolerant of Starscream, just settling for beating him about a bit, maybe shooting him in the wing or in the arm, knocking him down a bit. In the Dreamwave continuity, this was explained quite interestingly. Megatron sees a lot of himself in Starscream. He sees a lot of his own ambition. Starscream has this overwhelming ego and arrogance. He regards himself as superior in every respect to all other life forms in the universe, and he's not that concerned about the Decepticon cause really, or the other Decepticons, and this is where he differs from Megatron. It's all about personal ambition with Starscream. If he can accrue power, then he will do it by whatever means. And that includes riding roughshod over his fellow Decepticons. Megatron, on the other hand, is sworn to his cause, at least until he becomes Galvatron. Then he becomes a complete megalomaniac. But until then, he is to a certain degree idealised. Starscream is not. And that's what makes him so dangerous in many respects. He's so arrogant that he can't even keep his ambitions towards Megatron's throne to himself. He broadcasts it to Megatron's face. He tells him that it's time for a new leader. Megatron, you're old. Megatron, you're an idiot. Megatron, you're a coward. It's time for me to lead. And he usually gets beaten to hell for the trouble. And it's not because he's stupid. He's not. Starscream is one of the most intelligent Decepticons. He's just so utterly convinced of his own capabilities that he doesn't see any problem with broadcasting his ambitions. But the reason Megatron tolerates him is not only does he see a wee bit of himself in Starscream and his ambition, he regards Starscream as a sort of test, an acid test. If he can maintain his throne and his position, even with Starscream constantly gunning for it, then he's the right bot for the job. So there is a rationale, really, behind keeping Starscream around, treacherous as he is, and he really is. is. I mean, Starscream is hopelessly treacherous, and there is a wonderful element that's introduced to his character in the Dreamwave continuity, and it's a bit weird. It's a sadomasochistic quality where he enjoys getting the crap beaten out of him by Megatron and by Shockwave and by all the others he tries to betray. He enjoys it. It seems to reinforce him somehow. And there are some very disturbing panels of scenes after Starscream has had the shit kicked out of him, where he's grinning in the most profane and disturbing way, and it suits the character perfectly. I mean, the guy is a nutcase. He really is. Wonderful character, though. I mean, supremely attractive because he's a twat and because he's deeply unpleasant. Anyway, I've already reviewed this mould in the Acid Storm review, and it's exactly the same. Barring one or two minor differences in terms of the tightness of joints and that sort of thing, there is absolutely no difference. The only difference is the colour scheme, and the colour scheme of this one is stunning. I think there are 4 different Starscreams in the classic line at the moment, because the first few that were released weren't quite right, apparently. They weren't quite the same as Generation 1 Starscream. This one is, in every respect. I mean, that is the very picture of how Starscream appeared in the Generation 1 cartoon, and in all of the Generation 1 continuities, the comics and whatnot. It is a perfect recreation of him. The red, the white and the blue, offset with a wee bit of black and metallic grey. It's pristine. As with the Acid Storm mould, loads and loads of sculpted detail. Bloody annoying firing cannons again, but that doesn't really matter with Starscream. They're null rays. Null rays was Starscream's signature weapon, and they were apparently quite specialised. They disable electronic devices, but that's how they work, and apparently they're quite powerful as Decepticon weapons go. He's got lovely, lovely Decepticon symbols on his wings, as per Generation 1 Starscream. And yes, it is a stunning representation of the character. Barring the Masterpiece Edition, this is it. If you like Starscream, you want this. And of course, it's more playable than the Masterpiece Edition. If there is a fault of the Masterpiece Transformers, and I know it is quibbling, really, it's not really a fault because they're not designed to be played with. It's that you can't play with them. They will fall to bits, and that will be a significant amount of cash lost. So my advice would be, get the Masterpiece Starscream for display purposes. Get this if you like to play with your Transformers and you want Starscream. It's stunning. It's just a shame that there's not a Generation 1 accurate Megatron to go with him. That would be wonderful. Anyway, on to his robot mode.